While the previous videos in these series have talked about the Rice Archaeological Project here at Varner-Hogg and its purposeful community-based approach, this video will talk about past and future opportunities to increase community engagement. We'll first talk about the process and importance of finding the names of the enslaved people and how archaeology is pivotal in this process. And then we'll discuss the 2020 Day of Remembrance ceremony that happened here at Varner-Hogg and discuss the ongoing Descendants project.
We'd like to just take a moment to discuss the importance of language when talking about enslaved people. Today, historians and archaeologists tend not to use terms like master and slave because these imply a sort of inherent, born into identity. Instead, we use terms like enslaved woman versus female slave, right? Because one term identifies her first and foremost as a woman who is being enslaved, while the other implies that she is a slave who happens to be a woman. What we're doing here is we're changing the noun and the adjective in a way that's really important for this kind of work. Using terms like slave owner and enslaver really pays attention to the kinds of power, force, and violence that these people are using or had been using in order to keep people enslaved in perpetuity.
The history of the American slave trade has always been somewhat abstract. To me, I've heard the stories, I've read some books, but to actually be on a land and see the vastness of a plantation, to see where people may have been working at some point, it has brought me to a space where I am grateful for the ancestors that were able to make it through. I am appreciative for everybody that has fought to change the practices.
Not only do we have to tell the dark past, but we have to also tell the success stories. So there were, settlements and black freedmen towns and entrepreneurs and positive stories that have been left out that those individuals need to know also, so that they understand that there were other individuals that contributed to the success of your community, and oftentimes we're not given credit for their work. So it is our work to take primary source documents and truth to shed light on the darkness of that ignorance.
First, I would ask them to interview the oldest relative in the family, and armed with that information, I would have them go to the nearest genealogy center and start looking for their relatives in the census records, marriage records, all vital records. That's a big process, so there's beginning genealogy, intermediate genealogy, and then finding the last slaveholder. And it's not easy work, but you just need to be determined that you want to find your ancestors.
I would like every African American of Missouri County to be documented and have something in the archives with the Texas Historical Commission. I would like to see that in the next 2 years.
I think one of the coolest things I found is the 1867 Texas voter registration. And this is a record of all males who registered to vote in the state of Texas. And so I use that, for instance, if somebody were enslaved on a plantation, I would look at that record, look for the plantation owner. That record tells you when the plantation owner came to Texas, or how long he's been in the state, the county, and the precinct. Then I look for that enslaved person to make sure that those years mesh. And keeping in mind that our ancestors, some of them could not read or write, but it's a great document to see that they even registered, in that time frame when everything that was going on, with the war being over, that they were brave enough to register to vote. So that's one of the coolest things I found.
I would just like to see more involvement and more acceptance of the African American history.
So our historical collections and our archives right now, of course, are very sort of limited, and especially at Varner-Hogg Plantation, our collection is largely based on things that Ima Hogg collected during her lifetime, which her focus was largely on, Texas historical items and then decorative arts as well. But sort of as we've expanded on exploring the history of the site to include more than just the Hogg family and the Patton family and the Varner family, there are those spaces there of information that's missing. So how Descendants Project is helping us there is to sort of fill in those missing voices and those missing stories. So like I said, whereas mostly we focus on the great Texas heroes or decorative arts and things like that. Now we can focus on more of the local experience here on the site for people who lived and worked here that may not have been, you know, the famous Texans we normally talk about, but kind of, you know, people in their everyday lives.
In the past, we've had events such as Plantation Days, which really celebrate and romanticize the plantation in a way that might not have been accurate. One thing we get a lot here is the Texas plantation is a working plantation, and it's not like those that you see in Mississippi and Louisiana. I know this looks like it now, but it was remodeled to look like this, so it's a pretty simple home. And by having Plantation Days, you're really advocating a time that was very difficult for people and those African Americans that are part of the descendant community.
It's a program we have yearly that focuses on saying the names of the people who were enslaved out here, because we feel like if we say their names, we're giving them life at a place where they were pretty much lifeless.
The Day of Remembrance was a wonderful event. It was well received by the community, and what I took away from attending that is our ancestors would have been really proud.
We would like to replace Plantation Days with the Day of Remembrance, which is a reading of everybody that was enslaved on the plantation that we know about, and really tell the community we haven't forgotten. We are trying to tell your story, and at the same time help us tell your story, because so much has been buried. It takes a lot of the community members to come out and help us with this information.
The opportunities that have presented themselves here at this location has really been phenomenal and also surprising, because I was looking to be a part of something else, and now because of the Rachel Patton involvement and her story, I have become more at peace being here at the Varner-Hogg Plantation.
Descendant project is a new effort that we've been creating thanks to a grant, and so what we are trying to do with the Descendants project is encourage people from the local African American community to bring out documents that are important to them or that they feel like reflect the history of the area or any history they want to preserve. So recipes, yearbooks, family documents, family Bibles, family pictures, school memorabilia, newspaper information, anything that they would like to have digitized or preserved to share with others, they can bring out here, and we go through a process of scanning the documents and creating a digital copy of those. Those digital copies will then eventually hopefully be shared on a digital repository that other people can use to research, and if the people who bring out the items want, we can provide them with a digital copy to keep, which is great for people who live here on the Texas coast. That way you have a digital backup in case of hurricanes, floods, something like that, a way for them to preserve their own history when they may not have the scanning equipment to do that themselves. So they can not only have digital copies, but then we have those copies to share as well. And this is just a great way to kind of preserve the community's history and document it.
We've been reaching out into the African American community to try to get some artifacts from known descendants of the enslaved population, so we can start fully expanding the narrative of what we know. And we haven't conducted many over here yet, but at Levi Jordan we're also doing some oral history interviews to increase our descendants group, and as well as find out things that we have never known, because a lot of African American history has been it's always been orally translated from generation to generation. It's never really been documented.
We had one family bring us some documents, and their name was very familiar, and I said, I'm going to look this up and get back to you with more information. And so I sent them some information and never heard back from them. Well, then the next Descendants Project Day, they returned with even more information, because they said, oh, well, we're so excited to receive your message and that you were interested in this. It's just they were not super tech savvy and didn't know how to respond to the email, but they were happy to be welcomed out here and to basically find somebody interested in their information, and so they were excited to bring that out here. So just kind of having our excitement pass on to other people, and their excitement build us up as well to keep the project going. And so I always look forward to what people are bringing, and then just hopefully getting these things organized and put out there.
I've just finished digitizing the funeral memorial program of my mother, Miss Fannie Jean Macbeth Gibson. The main reason I wanted to bring her today is because I lost this program when Hurricane Harvey came. And I think that was in 2017 or something like that. So I lost everything I thought I felt was of value. This program was one of them. Digitizing your family history is very, very key. I used to frown on it and think it wasn't necessary, but after I've lost so much through the Hurricane Harvey, it is very important. And we really want to get that thought out to people because there is so much history here in Brazoria County. We know people have it. They have, it's in trunks and attics and shoe boxes and everything. And to get this formally documented for the African Americans in Brazoria County is key.
It's been a good project, and I feel like we know way more today than we did even 6 months ago, thanks to people in the community bringing us documents and just interacting and talking with people and sort of building up those relationships. And every week I feel like more people are coming out here and talking to us, and we're just getting to know, not only the people in our area, but more about the stories and what's important to them and what stories they want to share.
Having diversity, especially in a setting like this. You're learning multiple sides of the story. You're learning different perspectives. You're growing as a person. It's not a 2D world, it's a 3D world. So if it's 3D, you can see all around it. And then able to see all around it, you have to know the different perspectives. If you only see one side, you're losing. You're in a blind side. This historic site is reaching out to our local community and our schools within the area to say we want to help educate your children and expose them more to the endless possibilities that comes with American history. Because as Americans, we should be proud, but we should also be aware.
In 5 or 10 years, I really hope that all of these artifacts that have already been starting to be restored continue to be restored. I hope to see even more business on this land because it's such an integral part of American history and of international history. America is financially one of the leading nations, and this was a big supporter of it. So I hope to see even more people, and I hope to see more young people coming on their own.
My future plans for this partnership with Rice will be to continue to strengthen and increase our partnership through different opportunities for students, as well as working with the community to see how we can all work together in this shared partnership to provide opportunities at the local level.
If we just come in as Rice researchers and apply our knowledge and our scientific methods and our theories and build interpretations of the past, we're never going to be able to reveal the whole story because we don't have that local knowledge. And so one of the goals of the community-based archaeology program is to bring in local experts, bring in people who have lived in this area, whose mothers and fathers grew up here, whose grandparents lived here, who know this place and the meanings associated with that, and combine that with the knowledge that we're deriving through the tools of archaeology to tell a more complete picture of this place and its past and what it means to people today.
The time is now. We need to get the information out. It's time for us to stop being ashamed of being African Americans. We were enslaved. We were not born slaves. We were enslaved. And that is something that we have to get out into society, because that was something that our ancestors were taken through. But guess what? They survived. If it had not been for them, we would not be enjoying what we're enjoying today.
And I just really want people to come and visit a local attraction. Sometimes we really take it for granted that it's only 20 minutes away, 30 minutes away, an hour away. And Texas is apparently one of those states that is the change maker. So if you're here, come.
What we hope to convey in this video is that archival research is like a bridge. It's a bridge between past and present communities. It reminds us of what happened at plantations like here at Varner-Hogg and those beyond in the rest of the United States. But most importantly, it's a projection to the future, so that those who come after us can remember what happened. It's so that people like Cheryl Macbeth and their stories can live on. As we saw from Cheryl's interview, it's about an obligation to those who came before us, so that we can create these stories, bring them back to life through research like this, and to hope to create a better community for the future. What we've learned from the descendants is that these histories are still alive. They're still going. And it's up to not only researchers, archaeologists, historians, but also the rest of the community. If people like me and you can take up these stories and bring them to the future, we can hope to create a better community for us all.